In Luke 1:13 through 17, Zacharias, the priest after the order of Abijah, and husband of Elizabeth, one of the daughters of Aaron, was told, "Fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink, and he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. And many of the children of Israel shall he turn to the Lord their God, and he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." Many years before, the prophet wrote in Malachi 3:1, "Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts." And then in verses 16 to 18 of the 3rd chapter, "Then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened, and he heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord, and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth God and him that serveth him not." In Malachi 4th chapter, verses 1 through 6, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly, shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. And ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet, in that day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. Remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." In Malachi, the Lord is lamenting the unbelief of his earthly children. He tells them that he has given them unreasonable amounts of chances to turn to him, but in the end they will not do it. Thus God will burn them up with the heat of judgment as fierce as a red-hot oven. He will pull them up like plants of a vineyard. He will not leave a natural root in the ground. There will be no stalk left from which they will rise again. Then the Lord talks about those who are faithful and do believe. They shall be his. Though the nation will be cut off, some of the citizens of it shall be among those that remain, and there shall also be many Gentiles. Like all Old Testament prophecies, this is a hard passage to discover the meaning of on the basis of the Old Testament language alone. In Ephesians 3, verses 1 through 6, St. Paul called this the mystery of Christ in the Old Testament, and said plainly that the men of the old dispensation could not understand it, because the mystery was deliberately hidden by God from their eyes. When we look at the genealogy of Jesus back to Abraham in Matthew's Gospel, we will look at the covenant of promise in the Old Testament that predated and always took precedence over the covenant with Israel and the nation. So we will not preempt that discussion here. What we are attempting to do now is to discover the true identity and ministry of John. So man has had this problem with Malachi 3 and 4. But that which is a great problem to men is not a hindrance to God's program. God would take the kingdom from Israel and give it to the church. When he did that, truth would change in covenant form, as indeed it always was, but the Jews didn't understand that, from the letter which kills to the spirit that gives life. Since that is for a later time, we will not examine it now, but you can read about it in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 5, from verse 5 to the end of the chapter. The point is that God never intended to send the literal Elijah as the forerunner of Christ, but one who would have the same spirit and power of Elijah. That one was none other than this very John, who will soon be known as the Baptist. As tempting as it is, I'm simply not going to run ahead and tell you why he was called the Baptist. That's a very important matter, but it too is for later. The fact that John is the one God promised to send in Malachi cannot be doubted by Bible-believing men who do not have so much time and ego invested in materialistic theology that they, like those in Malachi that God was lamenting, simply will not and cannot see it. Listen to the angel telling about John in chapter 1 of Luke in verse 16. And many of the children of Israel shall he turn to the Lord their God, and he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Well, this is the exact language of Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. You may say no, that it is not the exact language. Well, it's as exact as any of the Greek equivalents of the Old Testament get. And the intent is clear to those who do not have a preconceived view to defend. This is the fulfillment of Malachi 4, 5, and 6. Jesus clears up any argument about it by his own interpretation of the Bible in this matter. In Matthew 11, Jesus talked to the Jewish multitude about this John. Beginning in verse 7 of that chapter, and as they departed, Jesus began to speak unto the multitudes concerning John. What went ye out in the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? What went ye out to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft raiment are in kings' houses. But what went you out to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, and then Jesus quotes Malachi 4:5, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare the way before thee. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women there hath not arisen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, and if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was to come. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. But whereunto shall I liken this generation? It is like unto children sitting in the market, and calling unto their fellows, and saying, We have piped unto you, and you have not danced. We have mourned unto you, and you have not lamented. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, He hath a devil. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, Behold, a gluttonous man, and a winebibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. but wisdom is justified of her children. In Matthew 17:9, and as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, Tell the vision to no man, until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. And his disciples asked him, Why then say the scribes that Elias must come first? And Jesus said unto them, Elias truly shall come first and restore all things. But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spake to them of John the Baptist. Well, I'm not going to go into these passages now. If I begin to do that, we'll never get through this study, and you would be so worn out and confused that you would not know what we had learned. There is a great deal to be said about them, and we will say it in time. I cite these passages now to give you confidence and comfort that John the Baptist was the coming Elijah of Malachi 4 and the messenger of Malachi 3, because you'll need that knowledge as we go along if you're to get anything truly meaningful out of this harmony of the Gospels. You may say to me that you are still not convinced. Come on now. Do your religious traditions really mean enough to you to call Jesus a liar and a heretic, or at the very least, a fool who didn't know what he was talking about? I hope not. For your sakes, listen to it again. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare the way before thee. And if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Elias truly shall come first, and restore all things. But I say unto you, that Elias is already come, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise also shall the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spoke to them of John the Baptist. So this John, who is to be born miraculously to Zacharias and Elizabeth, is the hand-picked messenger to come and prepare the way for Jehovah as he comes into this world incarnate. John comes in the same uncompromising spirit of boldness and the same power of God as Elijah, that great prophet of God, who stood up to Jezebel in a similar time of Jewish apostasy. John will not only prepare the hearts of the honest seekers among the people for the coming of the Messiah, but he, John, will turn many hearts to the Lord. Zachariah, at least, knew what the angel was telling him, and he thought it could not be that this messenger, in the spirit and power of Elijah of old, ordained to prepare the way for the Messiah, could come from him. For this doubting of the angel's words, Zechariah paid a high but not a fatal price. In chapter 1, verse 18, And Zacharias said unto the angel, Whereby shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife well stricken in years. And the angel answering said unto him, I am Gabriel that stand in the presence of God, and am sent to speak unto thee, and to show thee these glad tidings. And behold, thou shalt be dumb, and not be able to speak, until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. Gabriel stood in the presence of God and waited to be sent to bring information to God's people. He was not a warrior like Michael, who was the one God sent to do the tasks of judgment and protection. It was Gabriel who was sent on a number of occasions to take information to Daniel, but it was Michael who withstood Satan and protected the body of Moses. It was Michael who had to come and help Gabriel when the prince of Media was fighting with Gabriel and Gabriel couldn't get loose from him. It was Michael of whom it was said in Revelation that he and his angels fought and threw the dragon and his angels out of heaven. Gabriel is not a warrior. He is a bearer of tidings. And here he does not take kindly to having Zachariah question his message and his word. And behold, thou shalt be dumb, and shalt not be able to speak, until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. Zacharias doubted Gabriel's message and his words. Now he, Zacharias, would remain silent and speak no words of his own until he saw the fulfillment of what Gabriel had told him God was going to do. In effect, Zacharias said to Gabriel, "Until and unless I see it, I will not believe it." Gabriel's reply was to the effect, "That's fine, that's how it'll be, and until you see it and get your heart straightened out in this matter, you will not be able to say a word. God does not want you to be running around and running off at the mouth and raising doubts in people's minds about what he's going to do." Was this judgment not a bit harsh, perhaps? Well, maybe, but remember that Zacharias was in a holy and honorable position. He was one of the faithful priests in a nation of phonies, and he was the very one through whom God was going to do this marvelous thing. He should have known better at this point in his ministry and experience than to question God. Where much is given, much is required. God is always more disappointed with and comes down harder on those who are close to him, who know better, and who are able to hurt and disappoint God by doubting him. Now, this is a lesson for us. If you're a minister of the gospel, think long and carefully before you say you do not think Jesus knew what he was talking about and that John was not the Elijah of Malachi. Now, you may be able to go on talking religion in the natural realm as well as before, but your ability to speak in the Holy Ghost and for God with effectiveness is definitely at risk here. God does not like to be doubted because you, like Zacharias and the whole Pharisaical system, do not understand how it can be. You may be standing at a crossroads just now in terms of your understanding of the purpose and the accomplishment of the incarnation of God. Think and choose carefully before deciding which path to follow. Only one of them is right. And you can be sure that it is not the one that most religious men have taken. The path that leads to truth is narrow. The gate is somewhat hidden by vines. You have to be looking diligently for it. That is the warning Jesus issues when he says, "Few there be that find it." And the people waited for Zacharias and marveled that he tarried so long in the temple. The people waiting outside the temple for Zacharias to make his customary appearance were getting a little worried and impatient. What was he doing in there so long? They knew his routine, and they knew that he would never take it upon himself to do anything not ascribed to him. Had something happened to him? Had he fallen? He was, after all, a fairly old man. But finally Zacharias showed up, and when he did, it was apparent to them that something significant had been going on in there. Verse 22 says, "And when he came out, he could not speak unto them, and they perceived that he had seen a vision in the temple, for he beckoned unto them and remained speechless." And it came to pass that as soon as the days of his ministration were accomplished, he departed to his own house. The priesthood was a very demanding business that left little time for domestic life. Priests did not serve in the temple every day for the whole year. They had appointed times. When those times were over, they went home and took up normal life until their next appointment, at which time they moved back to the temple for the service. It was while he was home, fairly obvious statement, I guess, that Elizabeth conceived John. It was customary for Jewish women, when their condition began to show noticeably, about 4 months apparently, at least with Elizabeth, to stay out of the public view. If they were completely reclusive, or if their immediate family and friends had access to them, I do not know, and I did not bother to check it out because it didn't seem that important. But the fact of her seclusion is important to our story for 2 reasons, and I will go into that a bit, along with other matters, next time, if the Lord is willing.
Read more at godspointofview.com. A copy of this book is available from Amazon in Kindle and paperback format. Link in the description.